Welcome to episode 16 of the Ikario podcast. I'm really excited about this episode. I'm glad we had this conversation and we get to publish it now, because in this episode, we discuss some of our more ambitious, more out there goals for Ikario. Now, if you've listened to the first episode of this podcast, we already talked about why Ikario exists and how we are trying to bring kind of a different perspective to the personal development self-help niche. So if you've heard that episode, you've probably already heard how we're trying to do things, and we have an approach to things that sets us apart from what I would consider like your typical self-help personal development kind of thing. But this really goes much deeper and much further than anything would indicate that we've published so far until now. So here you can listen to some of our more outlandish, more ambitious goals, but also what we are trying to build here is really a community effort. Our goal here is more to build a movement, something that really changes the way a lot of people act, think, and live, because our mission is to level up people's lives, and we want to get that as far and wide as possible. So we are trying to build a movement much more so than we're just like trying to build a brand or a website or a YouTube channel. And this is very much a community effort. And in this episode, you can get a sense of where we are trying to go, and you can get a sense of if you want to get involved in something like this and how you might be involved as a community member. And very importantly, this is something where we are trying to start a dialogue. So listen to this episode, and you can go to the show notes, which are at ikario.com/016 for episode 16, ikario.com/016. On that show notes page, you can leave a comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can also leave a comment on the YouTube video. If you're an Ikario community member, obviously, we're going to discuss this in the forum as well. And you can also go to anchor.fm/Ikario to leave a voice message. So any ideas that you have, anything that resonates with you from what we talk about here, any ideas of what we could do differently or better, or what we could add to this ambitious project we're building, and any questions and feedback are welcome, and it will help us build a better community and a better movement. So with that said, I'm excited for you to hear this episode. Give it a listen, and I look forward to hearing back from you.
Welcome once again to the Ikario podcast, where we help you break free from the human zoo, optimize your life, and become a force to be reckoned with your hosts, again, Ollie and
Shane. And today, well, you just said our tagline, and in response to that, one could say, well, can you be a bit more specific about that? So today we want to talk about the idea, let's say the vision for Ikario, for what we're trying to build here. Because, well, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I noticed that there's quite a lot of stuff that we have talked about kind of off the record, and that we've just never published.
Yeah.
And we have talked about, obviously, also if you go to our website, obviously you get an idea of what we're about. But I just think that right now, even if you've watched all of our content, listened to all the podcasts and so on, there's quite a big part of the pie that you're not aware of yet, of what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go with this. And I thought we'd just kind of riff about this to make more of that stuff public, so that we can see what resonates with people. We can see, what ideas and suggestions and feedback people have, so that this idea can evolve as it's growing. I don't want to just kind of keep it for ourselves. I want to put it out there and kind of let it grow more organically.
Cool.
And it is one of those things, like I said, right? Our purpose, the tagline sums up our purpose. We've talked about this in many ways. It's like, we want to help you live a better life. We want to empower people, this kind of thing. But it's all a bit vague, because the thing is, what we're doing is not like a niche thing. So, a typical, if you say, okay, we have, I make fitness content, and my thing is I help dads over 40 get a six-pack. It's
really clear.
Very clear, right?
Yeah.
It's immediately clear who this is for. And we don't have that luxury, basically. We don't sit in a niche as small as that. And so it basically takes a bit more explaining. I wouldn't mind if, we're trying to arrive at like a tagline or something that is more that kind of is better, right? We've
Yeah.
been searching for that.
Yeah, Abby suggested helping you live a life of true freedom the other day. So we're playing around with some ideas.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's always like that too, you know. I think helping you live a life of true freedom, we know what that unpacks into. What does it mean, live a life of true freedom? For me, that immediately like unpacks into 500, subcategories of things, And the problem is that that's not obvious. And the same is, I think that just the idea of break free from the human zoo, for me, that encapsulates a lot of what ikario is about.
But it also has its problems too.
Yeah.
Because like you say human zoo to someone, it's like, what?
Yeah, it's basically not a known concept, right? People aren't walking around with an existing concept of what is the human zoo.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about that a bit.
Cool.
And we could start by talking about the idea of ikario HQ.
Yes. Well, this is what I was going to suggest actually. It'd probably be better to start at the long term, the ikario HQ, and sort of work our way backwards from that to the present. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And also maybe dip into like what it was that prompted you to want to do this in the first place. I mean, we may have explained that in other places before, but I think it might help to elaborate on that. So, ikario HQ.
Yeah.
What is that all about?
So the goal, where do we start, right? But the goal is, one of the things I want to do is I want to buy a piece of land somewhere. And I'd like to buy a piece of land that is kind of in the wild. So the ideal thing would be that it's really, I don't want it to be like in the suburbs of some city or something, Ideally, I would really like a piece of land that's like out in the mountains, in the forest, something like that. And also ideally, maybe no longer than like a 2-hour drive away from the next airport. And we'll get into why that is also important. But it's like I want to be in the wild, but not totally cut off from civilization. And what I want to do is, on this piece of land, I want to start building what we've been referring to as like either ikario HQ or the village.
Yeah.
And what we'd want to do, so again, it's kind of difficult where to even start, right? There's quite a lot that goes into this. So one of the reasons I want to do this is because I think there's a lot of learning, and it would be just a really cool project to build basically to build the structures we need there. So I want to make an off-grid capable place where we can live and work. And we would maybe we'd learn how to build a log cabin. Maybe we would get like prefab, A-frame homes shipped and then assemble them ourselves. Maybe we would get these geodesic dome things. There's loads of options there. But that would be part of the project is, okay, how do we figure out what is the best kind of and like most cost-effective way to start building something here? And the experience of doing a lot of the work ourselves. Because I think that's just a really cool thing to do as a group project. And it's also, there's a lot of skills, like I'm not very handy, and I would really like to learn some more of those skills. I would like to have a better understanding of, how to build things and how things work so I can fix them.
Yeah. I mean, for me, well, first of all, we actually did put these green things up in the background.
Yes.
So if you've been admiring these in previous podcasts.
And we made them ourselves.
We did actually make them ourselves from wooden, made a wooden frame and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I wanted to point out. We're pretty, we're getting there. Yeah. But the second thing is, for me, the idea of ikario HQ, it is a demonstration of multiple values that we have at ikario, but also the two that I have in mind are, this is like the radical environment optimization.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate in environment optimization. It's not just you like tidying up your desk and whatever. It's
you build your environment from scratch.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And this space, like everything is intentional, fit for purpose, and that's for you just for human thriving.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate experiment in that sense.
Yeah.
So obviously, we've mentioned this before, is like how important your environment is, crucial. Environment optimization. This is how we do that.
And let me dive in on that before you get to your second part, because I think that's super important, right? This is one of the things that I found frustrating with looking for an apartment in the city, for example, or also. So far I lived a very long time as a digital nomad, where you kind of just put up with whatever you find. But then there's been 3 places that I've lived like longer term. And each time I was quite frustrated with, or let's say there were 2 places that because out of the places that I've lived longer term, some of them I was just, early on I was kind of too broke. I just got what I could afford.
Yeah.
But there have been 2 places, this one and the one before this, where I had the finances, where I could kind of afford more than just the bare necessities. And I've been very frustrated with what's available. Because what's generally available is you have a place with, it's always like this standard thing, you've got a living room, you've got 1 or 2 or 3 bedrooms, you've maybe got a kitchen, right? Or in smaller places, some of these are like combined. You have like living room, kitchen in one thing or something, right? But basically, the best you can do if you really want to design your environment, the best you can generally do is maybe get a place with a large living room. Because generally, even if you pay a lot of money, the bedroom sizes are usually limited to kind of fit a large bed and a bit of furniture, and that's it. And so it's quite limited. So even for the space we're in right now, this is a very multi-purpose space, but it's not enough space. We would need like twice this space to really be able to all work here and do the podcast studio and so on. It's really cramped. But you can't find a place that has a room twice this size that isn't the living room. Mm-hmm. So either you're going to have the living room and turn that into your office or whatever, or you have to try and cram everything into a bedroom, or you get a place with more bedrooms. And then, it's just... You know what I mean? It's like if you think about what kind of space and layout would I need for what I want to do, you can't find that because there's basically no demand for it, because generally people get, however many bedrooms they need. So if you've got a family, then, you basically count the people. That's how many bedrooms you get, more or less, right? And then extra budget is spent on a slightly larger living room, a slightly larger kitchen, and maybe a more central location.
Yeah.
But what you can't get, or only at like insane budgets, at some point you have like bedrooms and, a lounge room or whatever it's called, other spaces made for other purposes.
A study, an office, and all this other stuff. But as you say, insane budgets. Mm-hmm. And that's something that, do you not find that a little bit weird? How like you'll move into an apartment that has, this is the room where you do these behaviors, mm-hmm. this is the room where you do these behaviors, and etc. It's like it's already comes sort of pre-packaged, mm-hmm. that your environment beckons you to do certain things in certain rooms, which is why I find it quite interesting why you, instead of having like just shitloads of sofas and chairs around, he was like, you know what, I'm going to use half of this living room and turn it into a gym. Yeah. And initially you walk in, it's like, well, this is novel. But it's like, actually, it makes complete sense in terms of like optimizing your environment to suit your purposes, rather than the environment that you just so happen to find yourself in dictating mm-hmm. your behaviors. Exactly. And this is essentially where the frustration comes from. If I think about how would I want to design my space in order to, live the life I want to live, here are just some thoughts, right? So I want to use space. So for example, for a bedroom, I don't need much space for a bedroom. I don't need a large bedroom. But what I want space for things like areas where I can exercise and move. And I'd like that to be a bit spacious so I can really move around, right? Because I don't just want to be, even the type of exercise I want to do like natural movement, mobility exercise. I don't just want to have like a little box where I can do my squats and my bench press and that's it, So I want some space for that. And then I would like to have a space where I can have sound treatment and do something like this or record a podcast. I would like to have an office space. And I don't want that office space to be cluttered up with a bunch of other stuff, right? I don't want there to be distractions in the office space. And I would like to have a space like for people to gather. I would like to have some way to get lots of people together, sitting around the table, having food and that kind of thing. I would like to do ground living in general. I would like to minimize the amount of chairs. And I'd rather, have most of the things be designed so that you're either standing or on the ground. And all of these things. And the reason I like these things is because that's basically in line with the kind of life I want to live. So a space, if you think about a distribution and configuration of space that is aligned with my values, looks very different from your typical apartment layout. Yeah.
And again, that's because, of course, in a city, you want to fit as many people into as little space as possible. And so this is essentially what we end up with. But the space is not designed for human flourishing. It's more like for human storage. And that's the thing that I want to do differently.
Yeah, like in Fight Club, what does he say? In Fight Club, he quotes his condo building as being rather than being a place fit for humans, it's more like a filing cabinet for widows and young professionals.
Yeah.
It's the same deal.
So it's that idea. And so there is the idea of, okay, what if you build something from scratch? How good can you make that? That's kind of also part of the experiment. How much can you upgrade people's life quality by just designing the space that they exist in?
Yeah.
And this is something that I think is usually reserved for the super rich. And also I want to say, like, obviously, and this is also something we are going to make content about this, and I'm going to show my living space, and I'm going to show the environment optimization stuff I have done, given all the limitations. Because let me be very clear, right? I am in favor of doing what you can with what you have. I'm not saying you have to stew in misery until you can go and build your own place from scratch, right? You can apply lots of environment optimization stuff to whatever space you have, even if it's a tiny studio apartment.
Yeah, that's an extremely appealing idea. And you mentioned just a moment ago that's reserved for the super rich, but the thing that I think about that is, I don't know how many super rich people have deliberately designed that rather than just having so much space that they just so happen to cover all bases with the sheer amount of space they have.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
But yeah, that's, and that's what we want to, so one of the things we want to do is we want to demonstrate how you can do this kind of thing with, limited resources and with the space you have. But I also want to take this further, right? I want to kind of take that dial of environment optimization and see just how far can we turn this. And the idea is always like you can create an environment for human flourishing. You can create an environment. So the key benefit of environment optimization is that environment drives behavior unconsciously, which means that based on your environment, you can have a better life or a worse life at the same level of effort, just by default, you either have a better life or a worse life. And a simple example of that, a simple but dramatic example of that is with sleep quality. If you find yourself in an environment where you have a lot of light pollution and a lot of noise, then you will find that your sleep quality suffers. And you have to make a lot of effort to kind of counteract those forces. So for example, I lived in a place once that had like super bright street lamps right outside my bedroom and pretty thin curtains. I couldn't really block out the light properly. And it was also very noisy. And so, of course, I could and I did get thicker curtains to keep the light out. But the noise, that was basically, I would have had to replace the windows or something. Like I couldn't afford that. But that's what I mean. Is like only with extra effort could I turn that bedroom in a space that actually gave me a chance of getting good rest, On the flip side, you can find yourself in an environment where, and this, a lot of people experience this, like if you go to the countryside or you go camping or something, where it's much easier to fall asleep and you feel more rested in the morning because at night or in the evening, everything just goes darker and you don't have a bunch of light pollution. So you just find it easy to fall asleep.
Yeah.
And then in the morning, you wake up with the sunrise and you find it easy to wake up. And that's no effort, absolutely no effort. And think about how big of a difference to your life quality, your sleep quality makes. I mean, long-term sleep deprivation is complete misery. And with absolutely no extra effort, like zero extra effort, you can be in an environment where you just don't have that problem.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's something that I think about that. It's like it's like the way we live, the environment we find ourselves in the modern world. It's like there's so many parts of us, I guess, primal parts of us that we kind of repress just through the environment. I could get into that, but I'll go on for too long, so I'm preventing the tangent.
Ooh, teaser.
But we could design an environment where you put yourself in that environment and straight away, there's just parts of you that are like, wow, actually this just makes sense.
Yep.
I've got an area here that's inviting me to move, this is one example. And it's like recently, it was interesting actually, because at the start of the year I decided that I was going to spend more time in nature, because it's one of my values, but it's not one I've ever really I didn't do much of this last year. So I went for just a couple of hikes, and I took Ryan along with me, and we were both just expressing to each other just how, like, okay, there's something going, as we're walking, we're like, there's something happening here where we're both not worrying about things, and it seems that our minds aren't as busy, and it just seems to be that our bodies, on a subconscious level, we're in total agreement with our environment. It's like, okay, this makes sense, thank you. And it just felt like an antidote to something, although I can't quite articulate exactly what. But that's just shows if you lived in that environment,
Exactly.
If when you left your front door you had birds and trees and water, and you just didn't hear any cars and shit, but you still had high-speed internet, and you could have all this other stuff that you choose to keep in your life. It's like, I don't see the downside.
Yeah. And that's the experiment we want to conduct. And so one way you can think about this is, I've read a lot of books like this, I've read a lot, I don't want to call it like self-help books, because I've read a lot of books about all kinds of facets of human behavior and basically the upsides and downsides of human behavior, let's say, right? And so there's so many categories of life where you can see that certain changes lead to just dramatic improvements across the board. And one that we're probably all familiar with, and we've talked about this before as well, is just exercise. It's just, before you talk about like specific what kind of exercise, what intensity, which exercise, blah, 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 before you get into all those details, just more movement just upgrades so many aspects of human life. And you can do this in a very, you can take a very quantified approach to this and look at health markers. And there's so many health markers that improve if you have someone, they go for a walk for 30 minutes every day instead of not moving. Or they ride a bicycle, or they play basketball, or they lift weights, whatever it is, right? It's like, there's a lot of like marginal improvement then that you can optimize for, but just more movement just lowers people's stress levels, improves heart rate, lowers all-cause mortality, lowers depression, anxiety, etc., etc. Right? So many markers are improved by this, and you can find similar things in loads of other categories. So the same with sleep. Not getting enough sleep is super destructive, and we've mentioned this book before, right? Why We Sleep by Matt Walker is just the Bible of this, basically. So not getting enough sleep just lowers so many factors of human performance and human well-being, and getting enough sleep increases all of them. Same with nutrition, just basically eating whole food, eating a whole food diet. So amazing, drastic improvements to people's lives compared to the typical, standard American style diet, which is lots of junk food, lots of processed food, and so on. So that's another one. What you were experiencing there, there's this whole idea of like biophilia. So the love of nature, or forest bathing, where, yes, that is kind of a form of therapy. Just put people in nature, and then it's suddenly like, this feels good, right? And it's the same thing. You can see all these health markers improving by just parking people in a forest every once in a while, and so on. Okay, and I've read stacks and stacks of books that I've put all these ideas in my head. Oh, okay, if you have more of this, that's drastically better for you. If you have all of this, it's drastically better, etc. And I'm like, well, can we design an environment that just has all of that built in, instead of it being like, I have to get myself out of bed 2 hours earlier so that I can drag myself to the gym and do my workout, and then I have to take a 30-minute Uber ride to find some patch of nature somewhere. It's like, how often are you going to do that? Versus, like you said, you just step out of your door and you're in nature. And the home gym example you mentioned is like, I've never exercised more than since I've had this home gym, because every time I walk past, I'm like, oh yeah, I could do some pull-ups, It's just there. It's just there and available to play with.
Yeah. It's like your environment is inviting you
to
participate in certain behaviors. Like some houses, the way people live, I've seen over the years, there's for some reason, and I was surprised that at a fairly young age I was kind of a bit curious about why this was. There was just TVs everywhere.
Oh yeah.
But why? Like a TV in every room. TV in this room, TV in that room, TV in the living room, TV in the bedroom, TV in the kitchen, TV in the dining room. It's like, why? I find it quite interesting because I wonder if you can look at the environment and you can sort of retroactively ascertain what the values are of the people that live there, or maybe they've just never chosen it and just gone with the values of the culture, which is like ceaseless entertainment and just big sofas, comfort and entertainment. Just watch TV and sit down, everything will be all right, you know?
Yeah. Let's briefly talk about that, because that's actually also this is also a facet of environment optimization. Like, so in this apartment we don't have a TV, and look anywhere, and that is something that it's it's easy to do. It's easy to get rid of your TV, and it upgrades your life because you're gonna have to find something else to do. And also, I don't have a Netflix subscription. I don't have an Amazon Prime. I don't have any whatever the 1,500 subscription services are that you can get
Disney
now, right?
Plus.
Yeah, I don't have any of those either. And even that, like, and for example, even with social media. So obviously, I'm not active on social media at all. But for a lot of people, that seems too drastic. But even if just delete the apps from your phone, like you can still go to whatever your thing is on in a browser, but just take it off your phone, take it off your tablet. And all that does is it adds a little bit of friction to the thing, because let's be honest, right? If you're on social media, you're spending too much time on social media. You're spending too much time on social media. You find yourself scrolling through the feed, and it makes you miserable and so on. Like, that this is a problem,
Yeah,
right?
you can rationalize it in every which way. And I used to do the same thing. It's like, I'm on it for work. That's the reason. I'm not on it that much. I choose when to be on it. I'm in control. It's like the fact is no.
And it's one of those things. If you just remove this stuff, you just remove the apps. Like I said, you don't have to be radical about it. You can say, I'm still allowed to go there and I'm still allowed to reinstall the apps, but I'll just remove the apps for a week and see what happens. That's a small environment change where it's like, oh, all of a sudden I'm not doing this thing anymore. And whatever you do instead of it is probably going to be better, right? And so if you throw the TV out and you have a stack of books there instead, what will you find yourself doing? You'll find yourself reading more without making an extra effort. And then as you do that, you're like, wow, this is way better than scrolling through channels or scrolling through all the stuff on Netflix I don't actually want to watch for hours,
Yeah. It seems as though creating Ikario HQ, one of the things we're going to do with this is take the things that in this environment are high friction and reverse it. Make all the things that, for example, you said you have to travel like 30 minutes by Uber ride to go to nature. Mm-hmm. You remove all that friction immediately by putting where you live in nature. Yeah. And there's just countless other examples, I'm sure, of like making all the things that are necessary for human thriving as low friction as you possibly can through the environment that you live in. And
it also, we can take that further, right? Because so in Ikario HQ, we want to build spaces for people to live. And we want to build spaces for people to work. So we want to build out a studio and things there. And we want to create spaces to like exercise. And this is why I said it shouldn't be too far from an airport. I want to be able to run workshops and events there. So this is another thing, right? We don't just want to build that environment for ourselves and be like, oh, our lives are great now. It's like the point is we want to experiment and kind of demonstrate what is possible. But then we want to bring people in so that they can experience this, and we want to have an ideal space for working with people as well. So, because of course you can just rent some venue somewhere and do your workshop there, in some hotel thing, right? These large venues are usually in hotels, right? These spaces you can rent out and stuff, or maybe in some in some space that's available for this. But that space is just not going to be that great. It's not going to be an optimized space. It's going to be space. It's going to be enough space for all the people and enough chairs for everyone to sit, right? But what if you build an environment from scratch? And one of the things I want to do with Ikario, and why I want to build Ikario HQ, is at some point in the future, I want to be able to run workshops where you basically you take people and, let's say you do a 10-day, 1 week, something like that workshop. You just take people and you put them in this environment that just levels them up across so many factors of their life. Plus you do work with them, obviously, right? So you do teaching, learning, skill building, exercise, etc. To kind of just give people like a mega dose of this stuff. And one of the reasons I want to do that, and one of the reasons I'm confident that this can be done, is because I have done this in at a much smaller scale with these apprenticeships and things like with the stuff I'm doing with the ikario team, right? I have done this before. I bring a group of people together, and with whatever means we have, we try to optimize the environment, and we basically try to create this this snowball of self-development, where if you find yourself surrounded by other people who are also into self-development, who are growth-minded, who are all, kind of willing to do the work of growth, like do the hard work and do the enjoyable work of growth and support each other and so on, it creates kind of a snowball effect. Now, if you could take that same snowball effect and also put it in an environment that upgrades people like this, I want to see what happens, basically. I'm really excited to experiment with that.
Yeah. So that's the I guess the environment optimization aspect of this. Mm-hmm. But there was another thing that came up, and maybe even a third thing, is the sort of, rather than having to go it alone, rather than being, the story we're fed of being the individual, self-made, whatever, success story. It seems that through building the ikario HQ, we are embodying our principle, our values towards that, which is community over radical individualism.
Yeah.
So I wondered what your thoughts were about that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So that is also one of the values that we have at ikario, is the idea of, like you say, not going it alone, and really building a strong tribe or building a strong community and intentionally building it. So instead of just kind of stumbling into it, you really want to intentionally build a community of people where, a key word I've said a couple of times, like the idea of growth-minded people, where you really want to say, look, this is a growth mindset. So the belief that people can improve and the willingness to do the work to improve, that is one of the things we want to cultivate in this group, right? And things like, open, vulnerable, honest communication. That is something that we want to cultivate in this group. We're not just going to throw a bunch of people together and see how it goes, and maybe the relationships inside the group are a bit toxic and we try to avoid that person and stuff, or we just don't talk about it, which is, I'm sorry, but that's what usually happens, right?
That's usually the working culture, isn't it?
Yeah.
People bitch about each other behind their backs and stuff. Exactly. You don't have the conversations you need to. You don't really know the people you work with that well. You know what they show you, but that's about it.
Yeah. And so what we are trying to model here is to build kind of an intentional tribe with certain values, that you do the work on building those values into your behavior and into your everyday life. And also, another aspect of this is that as a team, we can earn the money we need to build ikario HQ faster than any one of us could individually earn the money needed to build our own little thing somewhere, and that is also something, this is something we have been wrestling with, especially because of the COVID situation, we haven't been able to do any of the stuff we wanted to do. And so we have suffered from this, like, oh crap, we have a team of people and we have to somehow find another way to earn enough money to get this started. And early on, this can be more difficult. Early on, working with a team is more difficult than working alone, for sure. And early on, it's more difficult to get everyone paid, for sure. But if we do this right, then we can get to the point where we can say, wow, look at everything that we've built. Look at everything that we've accomplished, and look at all this income we're generating. This is more than what I could have done myself. My piece of the pie here is larger than whatever pie I could have made for myself by myself in the same amount of time.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect of the idea of ikario HQ, is that it's really only possible. This kind of thing at this scale is really only possible as a team effort. So you either what we want to do is we want to kind of do it from scratch. So build up the financial resources for it from scratch and build everything from scratch. The other way to do it is you can try to get financing, right? But then that's just someone else's team giving you money, basically. It still needs a team of people, right?
Yeah.
And that's also something we want to embody and also experiment with. So another thing that comes to mind is just the idea of role modeling, which is something I want to be doing with the ikario team. It's like all these values and ideas that we have and all the stuff that we talk about on the podcast, it's very important to me that we role model these ideas and behaviors. So I very much don't want to be an armchair philosopher where it's just like, well, here's some nice ideas and we're not doing that and you're not going to do it, but it sounds cool.
It makes you feel good when you hear it.
Yeah.
Makes me feel good when I talk about it.
Yeah.
But neither of us are doing anything about it.
Yeah. This is what I dislike about motivational content, you know? Oh, I'm going to say some stuff that sounds really cool with rising music in the background. It's like you're going to feel good for 5 minutes. And then? So I really want to be the opposite of that. And I want to model the behaviors and do the experimentation, because in the experimentation, a lot of learning is done. Like guaranteed, like in the project of building ikario HQ, there will be so many problems that we didn't expect that we have to deal with.
Without a doubt.
And so then we will learn more about what it actually takes, and we will grow our problem solving skills, and we will grow our ability to work as a team and so on in the course of overcoming these obstacles. And I want to model that. And it's like, essentially it's the extreme version of role modeling these ideas.
Yeah.
It's like I'm literally going to go out there and start with a patch of land, and turn that into something amazing while you get to watch.
Yeah. So that kind of actually covered the third thing that came to mind as a value that we're embodying through doing this, and that is skill building.
Yeah.
So it's when you mentioned that you wanted to build this thing from scratch, like have prefab A-frame like cabins and build them from scratch and stuff. And as well as the process of earning enough money for the team to actually make this a reality, that requires skill growth for all of us, you included as well.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to building stuff, as you say, you're not that handy. So that was just another value that we're clearly embodying with this. But I wondered if you had anything else to say about that.
Yeah, so skill building is kind of the way to get there. For me, that's basically how I see the world, right? It's like right now we're sitting here in this space and we're dreaming of ikario HQ. And how do we get there? Well, skills, basically, right? If our skills are good enough, then that's how we get there. So I think I've mentioned this before, like the concept of buying your freedom. So as a team, we are in the process of buying our freedom. So look, as an individual, I could already go and live in live in nature somewhere if I wanted, right? But that's because I built a business before and stuff. Like I've already done, like individually and with a different team, essentially, I've already gone through this process. But with the ikario team, I do want to start from the ground floor again, essentially, because again, the reality is, like I talked about with the environment optimization thing, the reality is that you probably, whatever situation you're in, you probably can't afford to live the life that you truly want to live. Even if you're clear about, what your deepest values are, what you want your environment to look like, what you want your ideal day to look like. For most of us, the reason, or one of the core reasons why we're not living like that is because we can't afford to. And one of the reasons we don't have a lot of control over our time is because we have to spend a lot of our time earning money in some way so that we can cover the bills and so on. And like the worst case scenario is that you're just on that treadmill, not even building up savings or anything. You're not going anywhere, you're just surviving. So most of your day, you're like sacrificing most of the hours of your day just to keep going.
Yeah.
And if you're in that situation, you basically have to buy your freedom. So if you want to have the freedom to live the life that you want to live and do the things that you really care about and design your environment and so on, you need more money. Quite simply, that's one of the things you need. You need more money. And that can come in different forms, because one way to buy your freedom is to develop your career in such a way that the work you do is aligned with your values. So you no longer feel like I'm sacrificing 8 hours of my day every day. doing something I hate, right? If that's actually aligned with your values and you get paid well, then, for example, one way in which you can buy your freedom is you can say, I'm going to work part-time. And when I'm working, I'm doing work I enjoy and I have free time. Like the solution doesn't have to be like get super rich and build a resort in the woods, right?
Thank God. A lot of people are like, oh, Jesus, thank God for that.
Yeah. But that is one way, like through entrepreneurship and through investing and wealth building and so on. That's one way where you can say, okay, I'm going to build up enough wealth or enough income to the point where I no longer have to trade my time for money at all. And where I have enough money to do the things I want to do, right? And again, like this is, the thing we want to do is very expensive. But for most people, you can live your dream life at a much, much lower price tag. It's more achievable than I think most people think if you really lay it out. And, credit to Tim Ferriss for this. I think he wrote about this in the 4-Hour Workweek. It was like, actually break down the cost of your dreams. And it's often a lot cheaper than you would think. So that is achievable. But still, like I said, most of us are in a situation where we have to do something. We have to increase our earning power or something in order to be able to get to that level of freedom that we want. And with the ikario team, that's part of what we're doing. So in our case, we need to be making quite a lot of money to be able to afford these longer term goals. And in our case, we are going to be trading time for money in some form for the foreseeable future, because that's what we want to do. That's the other thing, right? We want to be working with people, and we want to be, coaching people, helping people upgrade their lives and so on. That's what we want to do. But we want to make sure that we do it in such a way that generates a lot of income without disadvantaging anyone. That's basically the idea, right? That's another idea. Another core idea is I want to role model that you can build wealth without, basically in an ethically clean way.
Without being a dick.
Yeah. You can build wealth in a way that doesn't disadvantage anyone. And for us, that means we have to get really good at creating content, at building an audience, at creating products, and in other ways productizing what we do. So another thing that's maybe worth mentioning, at this point in time, we've got a proof of concept. We already know that we can change people's lives positively and dramatically. We've already done that with around 100 people at this point, right? There's about 100 people who've gone through some form of training of ours, or at least actually there's more than that if you think about the free stuff we've done. But
yeah,
there's about 100 people who've gone through a paid program of some kind that we've made with a really dramatic success rate, really dramatic, transformative life outcomes. We've proven that we can do this. And so, but also there's also something we can get better at this. We can get better at the skills of developing and delivering this kind of transformation for people. And we have to get better at the entrepreneurial skills of how do we productize this in such a way that it generates a lot of income, again, without being exploitative, without disadvantaging anyone. And those are some things that come to mind, right? Those are the skills. If we develop those skills, and that includes, one of the things we've talked about is like productivity skills. Like obviously, the more productive we are, the better we are at doing highly focused, highly effective work, the quicker we can get there.
Yeah.
And through developing these skills, that's how we essentially arrive at that. And that's how we buy ourselves the freedom to build something like Ikario HQ.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, something that I think what I really like about what we just talked about is that we're including our listeners in the picture. Because one of my personal values is like radical honesty. It's like the idea is that you should endeavor to live in such a way that you don't have to lie to anyone about anything.
I like that.
So the idea is that we maintain like a level of ethical honesty and transparency, even with our potential customers, which I think can be, another way of doing it that you don't see very often. Yeah,
and it's worth mentioning. I think one of the ways in which we could make money is to do like a guru business type thing, where we basically peddle some, solution to some. We peddle the kind of self-development stuff that we have as the ultimate solution to your huge pain point, for which, you can get exclusive insider mastermind access for $5,000 a month or whatever. And we talk some suckers into buying that from us, right? There are businesses like that. But obviously that's not what we're going to do, because that disadvantages your customers.
Yeah. And I also just think that through doing that, you shoot yourself in the foot long term, because over time you build a reputation for, like, if you're delivering a shitty product and overcharging for it. It's like it plays the short game of, I've got all this money, but give it like 5-10 years down the line, and it's like everyone's like, mate, you heard of that guy? Yeah, he ripped me off. He ripped me off as well.
Yeah,
fuck that guy.
Yeah, it's not a game we want to be playing for sure.
Yeah. So we've spoken about the Ikario HQ, and one of the other things I thought would be a good idea to cover was the present moment, like where we are now in relation to that goal and what we need to do to sort of get there. But you did actually talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And you actually even covered a little bit about the past, is like what's led you to this point with the apprenticeships and stuff. But I was wondering if you think it'd be worth mentioning any more about that.
Yeah. So to just kind of maybe quickly recap some of this, right? For me, it's like I've been interested in personal development for a long time, and mainly out of necessity. Like it came from, like I think for a lot of people, it came from a place, like a low point in life where you go, oh my God, I have to do something about this. This is terrible, And then I started working on, like developing my skills, developing my mind, and so on. Also, a lot of it is kind of emotional work, dealing with all your emotional baggage, all this kind of stuff. And I'm happy to say that I've done this pretty successfully, right? I'm not going to say that I've like reached the end of the journey or something like that, but I can point to loads and loads of problems that I've overcome in my life. And where I can really say like, okay, this really worked. I got from this low point to a high point in my life. And it makes sense. It wasn't an accident, right? I can like trace the steps that I had to take to get here. And then I got interested in like bringing this to other people, because I've had this feeling sometimes in my life where I go, this kind of transformation that I've experienced, one of the problems with it is that a lot of it is internal. So just the experience of being me, the subjective experience of being me, has improved really drastically over the years. And obviously I still have my ups and downs. And for example, I have depressive tendencies, and that's something I still struggle with at times. But it's a huge, even at a low point of depression, 10 plus years ago, I was a complete victim in that spot. I was just overwhelmed with my suffering. Whereas now, when I'm depressed, I have this, it's a completely different experience, because there's part of me that goes, oh, I'm depressed. And then there's like a list of tools. Here's the stuff I can do, because I know, here are the things, the boxes I can check, because I know that the last times this kind of thing makes it better. This gets me out of it, And so even in the depth of depression, it's better to be me now, to be me now than to be me 10 or 12 years ago, So
you've leveled up your depression.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I really have. And it's one of those things where I sometimes just wish, like, I wish I could just give this to people. I feel like I have experienced some things that are so valuable, and I see other people suffering, and I'm like, if I could, I would just, download this onto a USB stick and plug it into your brain or something. I wish I could do that. Because I can't do that, I'm trying to do the next best thing, which is somehow use the magic of language, right? It's like flapping your meaty parts in a certain way that creates sounds that somehow translate into brain images in other people's minds, or squiggles on a screen or a paper that translates into meaning for other people. How crazy is that? Anyway, I describe language and writing in this way because it is kind of a poor medium in a way. Like, it's complete magic. It's amazing. But it's also, I have this experience, and then I have to turn it into either sounds or squiggles on a page, and then hope that somehow that translates to someone else. It's like a tall order, let's be honest.
It is a tall order. Yeah, it is. And that communication, it's like it will go through all their filters, and when it reaches them, it'll be very different.
Yeah, very different from what was in my head originally.
Yeah. So the idea is that the closest thing you can get to that is if, say, for instance, someone is, just along the way, like how cool would that be? Someone's really suffering, like someone is balls deep in the human zoo, and they're just like depressed. They're out of shape. They're unmotivated. They don't know where they're going in their life. They don't have a particularly supportive social circle and whatnot. And you'd say, listen, right, we have this place. Okay, there's an amazing place. Here's all the pictures and everything, but it really doesn't do it justice. Just come here for 8 weeks, just to see for the first time in your life what is possible. It's like plonk them in that environment and just document their transformation.
Oh, dude, I want to do that so bad.
Just plonk them there. It's like, look, what do I need to do? Nothing. You ain't got to do nothing because the environment is so optimized for human thriving that, look, you might believe like, I've got to crack the whip on myself, self-development, meditate. No. You don't have to do any of that if you don't want to. Just 8 weeks, chill out.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then 8 weeks later, it's like, wow, you are a completely different person, aren't you? It's like, I can't go back. It's like, okay, we'll build another cabin then.
But let's connect the dots on that, because I think you're making a very good point that even I hadn't made that connection. But yes, let's briefly connect the dots on that, right? So I have this subjective experience that I wish I could give other people. I can't do a direct like brain transfer. So what I'm trying to do is the next best thing is I'm trying to create content that transfers this. And in terms of what we're doing with ikario, we want to make the content in such a way that content earns us an income and earns us an audience so we can bring this to more people. And then I want to upgrade to a better modality than language. That's one way to think of Ikario HQ. Ikario HQ is one step closer to the brain download, right? It is a more salient mode of communication than squiggles on a page or waves in the air, right? Sounds is put people in that environment, give them the experience, right? And so in a way, you could also think of it like this, is like one way to try and communicate stuff would like to put people in a simulation, put them in a simulation where they experience the same stuff that I experienced, for example. Well, we can't do that either, maybe at some point in the future, but it's like, again, like we're closer to that by creating an environment that helps people experience this transformation. We can do more like non-verbal transformation for people and this is basically what we're trying to do by getting groups of people together, and by even teaching and coaching, there's like a non-verbal aspect to that's pretty important.
Without a doubt.
And we're basically trying to level up the mode of communication for this. And the basic idea is always like, your life can be way better than it is now, right? You can upgrade your mind, your emotions, your life quality, your skills, etc. You can upgrade all of that. And we are basically just trying to build better and better modes of transferring that to people.
That is a brilliant way of thinking about it, because the way I got an image in my mind actually when you were talking of like a sphere, and it's like content that we deliver is like the outer edge of the sphere, but we deliver it and it's easy to access through YouTube and stuff, but there's a lot that gets lost in the post, in the download from us in our minds to their minds. There's a lot of middle steps, and eventually they might take action on it, but they might not. But it's like we get people to sort of pay attention with valuable content, but the closer they get to the center of the sphere is Ikario HQ. It's like, look, you're seeing on YouTube all the content that we're generating of us just being this, right? And you're watching it in a cluttered room, but what we want to do is make it so that like we're getting rid of the screen and all the middle steps, and you're actually here living it with us. And you're experiencing the transformation that could come of that. Yeah. And then another aspect to that is, because of course you can say, well, only so many people can ever come to Ikario HQ and experience that. For most people, that will just not be an option. Yeah. So another aspect is, again, the role modeling of how to do this kind of thing, of how to build this kind of community, of how to optimize your environment, of how to
essentially do the same thing that I've been doing, which is like you take this positive thing and you start spreading it outwards. You start spreading it outwards to a couple of people you can reach around you. And maybe you can keep spreading that. Maybe you can build your own little community. And maybe you can build your own version of Ikario HQ eventually, you know? And this is also this is like the best possible outcome that I can envision, is that we can encourage more people to start that, you know, like we can seed more communities like that, where someone says, hey, yes, I want to do this kind of thing. And Ikario is a resource for me to look at how to do it, you know? How do I start assembling people around me? How do we, as a group, start leveling up our lives? And how do we spread this further? And in that way, that's the best chance we have of reaching more people in a practical way, right? Other than just having lots of people watch our video, which obviously that's basically not enough. Like, it's about what you do. It's not about what you consume.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing that, you know, a long-term goal is that we want to encourage kind of the creation of many such communities and role model how to do it.
That was another question I had, but you answered it. But another thing, just take it in a slightly different direction. So when, if we were to tell people about this, people will have different reactions to this.
Sure.
So one of them would be, this sounds a bit culty.
Yeah.
You know, this sounds like a cult.
Yeah.
Which is, I've only told a couple of people about this, and both of them were like, that sounds like a cult. You're joining a cult. So I guess I just wanted to sort of see what your thoughts were about that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like it'll polarize a lot of people, but that's fine.
Sure.
Whereas other people will be like, this is great. And on the back of that as well, it's like, it seems that when you think of communes, when you think of like people making villages that are outside of cities and stuff and being self-sufficient, you just think hippies.
Yeah.
Like most people would just think that.
Yeah.
But it seems that there's a very different sort of flavor we're bringing to the picture here. But I just wanted to know if any thoughts came up when I said that.
So with the cult thing, I think you can't do something like this without being accused of cultiness. It's something I take very seriously. We will have an episode on cults, actually. I have personal experience with something cult-like. And I think this is important because I think you have to guard against cultish behavior on both sides. You have to guard against it on the side of your audience, let's say, right? The people you reach. But also, so obviously on the one hand, you don't want to impose cult-like stuff on them. But also you don't, because I think that in some cases, you know, people who are like experts or content creators or whatever, they can fall into being a cult leader without ever having planned it. So it's like you can kind of be seduced into it. You also have to guard against it in yourself. You have to make sure that I don't end up doing this stuff. Because yeah, I do think you can inadvertently become a cult leader essentially. And so what do we do about this? Well, you have to be aware of like the cult playbook, because there is a fairly, let's say there's a fairly short list of like the 80-20 how to make a cult. You know, I'm sure there's many different cults that have been built in many different ways, but they all have some things in common. There's like a playbook of how to build a cult. And I think everybody needs to be aware of this. That's like basic mental self-defense, and we'll do an episode on this. I think you have to be aware of what are these things, because you have to be able to recognize them, and you have to be able to recognize them in someone else, be like, uh-oh, that's culty behavior. You also have to be able to recognize it in yourself, be like, uh-oh, I was about to do something cult leadery, you know? And you can have, but this, oh my God, this is a whole other episode. We can't get into this, but you can basically, if you're aware of these, if you think of, that's one of the possible pitfalls of building something like this, is that it turns into a cult. But you can be aware of what are those things that will make that happen? What are the negative aspects of a cult, actually, that we want to avoid? And how do we basically infuse the culture we're building with the antidote to that kind of behavior? Okay? But, okay, this is a whole other thing that we're going to talk about at some point, is the idea of subversiveness.
Yep.
Which is really important. But it's impossible for me to even say anything about that other than we'll talk about it at some point.
Tangent averted.
Yeah, honestly, this would be the tangent of all tangents.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, we kind of reached just under an hour, which is quite a nice, tidy place to wrap up. If we don't have any more things to say about this.
So there's one more thing that I want to briefly touch on that came to mind when you mentioned something about this. The idea of taking someone and just putting them in this environment, and just being like, just chill here, and good things will happen. So this is something that's also a goal that I have. What I've done so far, so for example, with the ikario team, this team was selected. So out of quite a lot of candidates, we were looking for certain qualities, and we pre-selected people who would be suitable to build something like this. And that is, like, initially, you have to do that. But the argument there is, we can't just make stuff that only reaches people, or that's only useful for people who are already growth-minded, who are already into self-development and so on, right? Arguably, some of the people who need this the most are like the deepest in suffering, and they're not even, they wouldn't be ideal candidates to join the ikario team, right? So what I'd like to do as we improve our skills, I would like to do experiments with people who are kind of further and further away from an ideal candidate. So again, just to clarify this, let's say you do some workshop, some personal development workshop. If you get a bunch of people who are already switched on, already into personal development, already have, experience like learning things, like changing their habits and so on, you do a workshop with them, it's going to be fucking amazing, right? Because it's kind of easy mode. If you have a bunch of people like that, as long as what you're teaching them isn't nonsense, like they'll take it and run with it and do amazing things. How great is that, right? That's easy mode. And that's still valuable. It's great if we can do that. But what I would love to do is, as we increase our skills, do this work with people who are basically worse and worse qualified candidates. And eventually get to the point where we can take someone who's like, look, your life is a mess. Your life is a mess. You've never read a book, right? It's just like you're the furthest away from someone, and you're like deep in a hole. And like, can we prove our skill at empowering people by taking someone like that or a group of people like that and turning them around? That is, like, for me, a personal goal. Like, I want to get that good at it, right? I want to get that good at it that you can give me a group of absolute misfits and I'll turn them into badasses. That's what I'd like to be able to do.
Sounds like a good goal.
So this is the part where we talk about some random stuff that is not necessarily related to our main topic. And one of the things I want to talk about is the Amazon Halo band.
Now, just to be clear, I don't know what this is.
Okay.
Shane put this down as a topic to talk about, and I still don't know what this is. So any reaction you get from me will be 100% authentic.
Mm-hmm. The Amazon Halo band. So, the Amazon Halo band is a wristband, kind of like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or something like that. Although it's more like a Whoop strap. I think it doesn't have a display, right? Yeah, it doesn't have a display. But it has, you strap it onto your arm, it has sensors on there, and it measures your heart rate and your activity and stuff like that.
Cool.
And it's made by Amazon. So, that's, it's not that bad, right?
Not crazy so far.
Not crazy. It does some other things, though, that are interesting. For example, it measures your tone of voice. So this thing listens to you all day and gives you feedback on whether you sounded angry or sad or, engaged or something like that. Okay?
Okay.
And it's made by Amazon, by the way, which is a company that doesn't give much of a fuck about privacy, of people.
It makes me wonder how much more data How many more data points do they feel they need to harvest? You know.
So what it tries to do, so basically, it's listening to you the entire time and trying to assess your mood, essentially, right? And another thing you can do is it can do a body scan and that's like through your phone. I guess that's the app. I don't know if the band has anything to do with that actually, but they advertise it here where you can get into your undies, and stand in front of the camera from all angles, and they will recreate a 3D model of you and like tell you what your body composition is based on that.
Okay.
And I think, was there other stuff that does? Obviously, and yeah, it tracks your sleep. And it does all the other kind of regular fitness tracking stuff,
Okay.
But that's basically it. It's like the idea that, so you would have this wristband that tracks your movement, your heart rate, your sleep. It listens to you the entire time. It tracks your tone. You upload a full body, all angles, picture of yourself to this app. This app is running on your phone at all times. And it's made by Amazon.
What would be the first thing that springs to mind for me is like, oh shit. But the other thing that springs to mind is like, what use would the average person truly have for something like this?
I honestly don't know.
Is there a void in their life that this will fill? Is there a problem that an average person has that this will solve? Because it sounds like it's just one of those things, one of those bits of technology that certain people will be like, oh, this is a cool gadget, put it on my wrist.
Yeah.
And it's like, they won't know the ins and outs of it, or they won't even have considered why they're using it. They won't have a good reason for it. And Amazon just harvesting your tone of voice, perfect time to sit to, this person's angry. When they're angry, they respond to this kind of ad the most.
Yeah.
We have all this data that backs this up.
That's the only shocking thing about it, really, because I'm pro quantified self, if you will, right? I'm interested in all this like fitness tracking stuff. And I've used many fitness trackers in many contexts, and I see the use in them. When I was training, like running and cycling for a while, it is super useful to have a heart rate monitor for that. And having an activity tracker, it does help me. I really like things like getting notified when I've been sitting for too long. I like that, and it is something that it's a benefit to me. So the tracking stuff, I can understand the upside of this. The voice tone analysis is like, I'm not sure why would I want that. But the really shocking thing about it, look, if Apple made this, and I'm saying Apple because Apple is like the one tech giant that is serious about privacy from the looks of it, right? If they made this, I'd just be like, well, that's a feature I don't want. But I wouldn't be horrified. But because it's Amazon, it's like there's something very creepy about that. And especially because of their long history of abusing workers to the absolute limit of what you can do without it being a crime, right?
What about if Google came out with this?
Same horror show, yeah. But I think it's slightly more horrific from Amazon, because if Google does it, it's just like, yes, of course, they just want more data. They just want to suck up even more of your data to serve you ads. With Amazon, I'm just thinking this voice tone analysis thing, I bet this is running in their call centers and shit like that, I bet that if you're sitting there doing your crunch time, horrible working conditions, customer support calls for Amazon, you get dinged when the thing tells you, ooh, you weren't peppy and friendly enough. We've docked $12 from your pay or something,
I genuinely can't think of a reason why the average person would need this.
Yeah.
It's like, you sounded angry here. Were you angry? Is it like a self-awareness tool?
I don't know.
Since when do most people care about that? To a degree where they just buy a gadget for it.
It's just weird. But even so, like even if you found this useful, even if you think, oh, it would be really good for me to have someone analyze my voice, like it should be someone other than Amazon. That's basically my point. It's just like, ugh. And who buys this? I don't get it. I hope nobody buys this. I hope this immediately disappears like the Fire phone or whatever the crap it was, I hope nobody buys this. Please. Don't upload your voice and your body and your sleep and your mood and shit to Amazon. Just don't.
What's also crazy is they get all of this for free. Actually, no,
No,
not
you pay
even
for
that.
it.
You
You
pay that.
pay for it.
You pay to give them this
Yes.
data. They are laughing their asses off.
Yeah, that would be another story as well. If they said you can wear this band and we'll pay you a certain amount, what will pay you for your data, I would still say don't do that. But at least that would be a fair transaction.
At least there's some transparency.
Yeah.
Rather than, hey, check out this watch. It's amazing. And then we're just harvesting your data in the background and selling it.
Yeah.
It's
That's
nuts.
terrible. That's terrible.
It's dystopian.
Yeah, it is. It's
Orwellian.
dystopian. I don't know. I don't like to use the term Orwellian because it's overused. And it's mostly used by people who haven't read Orwell, which includes me.
And me.
Right? Okay. So let's not say Orwellian. Let's say dystopian.
Dystopian. Let's stick with that. Then we don't have to read any Orwell to back up a point.
Yeah, exactly. Don't want to be reading books.
Don't want to be reading Orwell or books. Too much effort.
Yeah.
Madness.
There we go.
So this is the part of the episode now. We're introducing this where we actually respond directly to your voice notes. So obviously on previous episodes, we've always said you can go to, what's the link?
Anchor.fm/ikario.
Yeah, and you can leave a voice note. So we're going to respond to them here.
All right. Well, let's do the first one from Lorraine.
Hi, Shane and Ollie. My name is Lorraine. I am from Lincoln, Nebraska, and I just wanted to leave you a message and let you guys know that I think you guys are awesome. You're doing great. The podcast, it's one of my favorites. I listen to it every time a new episode comes out. I make sure to listen to it right away. And so when you sent a message to send a message, a voice message, I knew that I wanted to do that for you. But yeah, I am a podcaster as well. I started one in May of last year, and I just started interviewing other local small businesses here in Lincoln to get them more visibility and more exposure to the Lincoln community while everything is kind of rocky. And so, but I love listening to you guys and taking lots of tips and tricks and keep it up.
Oh, nice.
Damn.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you, Lorraine. I couldn't help it. First of all, that's the first voice note we've ever actually featured.
Yeah.
And it was weird because as you press play, she started talking. I was like, oh my God, people actually listen to this. It's like
it's getting real.
It's a real surprise. Like, oh my God, yeah, it's getting real. I'm going to leave.
Yeah. No, it's great. Also, I love that. I love the community focus of what she's doing. That's really cool. Something that we haven't been able to do as much of, but as ikario develops, you'll see that this is a big thing for us too. Like the idea of building stronger, like local communities. I think that's a really cool example, right? So she basically sees, okay, there's a problem, and what can I do to get small businesses more exposure in my community? That's very, very cool.
Kick ass. Yeah. Also, there's one thing I was thinking as the voice note was going. It's like, damn, like people from the US, man, their voices on like voice notes and stuff just sound so cool to me. I don't know why that is. I think it's just because I grew up in like quite a small village in the UK, and I just watched, like
American
movies. And then when someone starts talking, it's like, wow, that place really exists. These people really exist.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good podcasting voice. Yeah,
totally.
So should have mentioned the podcast. Not that we can offer lots of exposure at this point, but there we go.
All 5 people will check it out.
All right. Next one is from Nick.
Hey, Ollie and Shane. Just finished watching that 13th podcast about competitive advantage, and I'm not sure if you guys have gotten a voice message here on Anchor or not, but I wanted to do it. I know you guys were waiting for that first one, so just wanted to say appreciate you guys doing the podcast, and I signed up for the monthly coaching with Ryan from the ikario team, so really excited to get that going for this whole first quarter and hopefully keep it going for the entire year. And I just want to say thanks for you guys doing the podcast. It's at least positively affecting one person, so I'm sure you guys are helping a lot of other people too, and keep it up.
All right, that's awesome. Yes, I thought this name looked familiar. So
we've got a few Nicks,
actually
in the community.
Yeah, I'm only reading the first name here for privacy reasons, but yeah, That's really cool. One of our coaching clients working with Ryan at the moment. And yeah, just about Lorraine beat you to the first message just by hair's width. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Appreciate it. And yeah, you're in good hands with Ryan, as you are aware of, I'm sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So those are the first two we've gotten so far. Only praise, which I'm not going to complain about. You can send us all the praise you want. But also, if you have anything that you would like us to cover, or if you have any questions about topics that we talk about, then that is also something you can do via the voice message. And I think it's kind of a bit more convenient than typing out, a question in the comments or something. It's just like you just hit this button and ask away. And obviously, like I said, we super appreciate any feedback and stuff that we get. But I think also just questions and comments and things like that can enrich this whole discussion, and can help us make sure that the stuff we talk about is relevant and useful to our audience. That's one of the reasons I'm excited about starting to get voice messages too.
Yeah, same. I think we should do we should play it like Russian roulette. We get a bunch of different voice notes in. We don't listen to them beforehand. Keeps us on our toes. Might make it a bit more entertaining as well. We start pressing play, and just someone starts absolutely roasting us both, and we just sat there like, oh.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can totally roast us as well. That's fine.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's the lot.
That's about it. So now you know a bit more about what this whole ikario thing is about and our long-term goals. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions about it. I'd love to hear what you have, so I'd love to hear if this resonates. If this makes you think, oh my God, I want this. Or if there are things you go, hold on, what about that? I'd really love, so if there's friction here, I'd love to know about it, because I think that's a learning opportunity. So what you can do is you can go to the show notes and leave a comment there, or you can go to anchor.fm/ikario, and there's a message button there. You can leave an audio message. I'd love to hear some feedback on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these admittedly grandiose plans that we have for ikario.
All right, that's it. Take care, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.